So, question number 3.
Okay.
And it is a little bit more complicated than
Okay.
playing games. So, 2023 is around the corner. Are you excited?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So, and Christmas is just around the corner, right? Okay. Have you done the shopping for Christmas?
Well, I mean, my family and I, we don't celebrate Christmas, so it's not so much of a stress for us. But what
Okay.
it is nice is that everything shuts down anyway. So there's always time off. So yeah, we still use the time to get together with friends and family and stuff. So even though we don't celebrate the holiday, we still take the time to relax and recharge and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm excited because I'm personally working on a number of goals where Russian and my job will come together. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to tie up some certifications soon with that. So I'll be using some of the time off for that, and then yeah,
Amazing. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And how has 2022 been for you?
Oof. It's been a long year. um, actually, for them on balance, everything's good, right?
Okay.
Like, family's healthy, everything's functioning, everybody's good for the most part. I think if to put it in a word might be chaotic, because it seems like for everybody nowadays, every time you turn around, there's some sort of new challenge,
Oh,
right? Yeah, right. I mean, here in Calgary, uh, viruses are picking up again, right?
oh,
Like
really?
COVID's picking up, a couple other viruses picking up. And that's kind of like sums up the last couple of years, right? And I don't think that's unique to us, but so there's always some sort of new challenge that makes the year feel long. But I think that that's really what the new normal is. I don't know if you guys have that term so much there, but the media here really picked up on this whole concept of new normal. And I think new normal doesn't mean, oh, get used to pandemic or something like that. It should mean get used to change. And for a long time, everybody talked about, well, let's get back to what it was before. And
Oh,
that's not possible, right? So now it's just really about adapting to taking one day at a time, right? Don't try and put all the stress of taking care of your job and taking care of your family and taking care of yourself all at once, but look at what you can realistically do today. Stop stressing about tomorrow. Just make the best decisions you can with the information you have, with the resources that you have.
yeah.
Stop trying to panic about things you can't control or resources you don't have, and just be, just take a deep breath and take one day at a time. Um, for myself, because I have chronic health issues, that's a hard lesson I've had to learn for a long time. Now it's challenging to see everybody have to learn that.
Yeah.
But I think everybody, for the most people, are kind of adapting to that now, at least here.
Okay, adapting. Huh, adaptation. Another
Yeah.
word of the year.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And as quickly as possible, like the sooner the better. The
Oh
sooner
yeah.
you
Yeah.
adapt, the better. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Has life in Calgary and in Canada changed a lot this year?
In 2022, um, yeah, I would say so because um, I think it was a more dramatic pendulum or maybe swing um, for people because there's a lot of people who are maybe slower to catch up to those adaptations we were talking about,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so you know, there's a big push to, okay, pandemic is over. Well, no. You might want it to be, but it isn't, right? And so there's these swings back and forth between, um, should there be mandates? Should you be masking? Should you be getting vaccines and things like that? And it's had a dramatic effect on the workplace, right? I can think of where my wife works, where people are still deeply divided on, should we be working at home, or should we be wearing masks in the office? And it's not a unique experience. So 2022 was very much pendulums that way here in Calgary, between those that are still afraid, those that are wanting to be pragmatic, and those that are still desperately trying to fight against change. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's the same, totally the same here. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Changes, and we are just as if life is throwing us, back and forth, back and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody feels a little bit like a rag doll, a toy being thrown about. Yeah, not unexpected.
And then when we started talking about reflecting on the responsibilities that you have, something that you can influence, right? So this is something that my therapist and I discussed during our previous session. And we talked about it, about the therapy. And I remember you mentioned a particular one that you prefer.
Oh, right. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah.
Okay. Would you tell me more about that?
Oh, goodness. Well, I want to make sure I do it justice. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so can't give you an expert opinion. But as a patient, so like we were saying, talking about, adapting to changing circumstances. So the biggest thing that cognitive behavioral therapy helped me appreciate was the physiological things that happen in our brains, right? So we have different components of our brains, right? Different sections. And for me, I deal with a lot with anxiety, right?
No, so do I.
Oh, so does everybody, right? But for some of us, it's harder, right? And so, one of my therapists helped me recognize, okay, we have this little section of the brain called the amygdala.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one that's always responding to things.
To stress.
To stress, yeah. And it's looking for stress, right? Like she used an example, you open a dark cupboard and maybe there is something hanging there, or a coat rack. Okay. And you have that first reaction, you think that there's somebody there. And there isn't at the coat rack, right? But for that split second, you're terrified that you think you see a person. That's your amygdala saying, there's danger there, be careful, right? You then analyze and see that it's a coat rack, and that's the cortex of your brain, right? She used another illustration. If you're driving and you see a car, all of a sudden, it's not where it's supposed to be. Maybe it's in front of you and it's in the wrong lane. Can you recognize the type of the car, the color of the car, the person driving? No, right? For that split second, your amygdala is just saying you need to move, right?
Yeah.
It's in that the second after that you recognize, oh, it's a blue car, it's a person wearing a hat, it's the lights were on or they were off. That's
some other parts of your brain start working, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
After it stops working or what?
Right.
So that was the reaction of amygdala, and then only then some other
cortex parts.
Yeah.
But for a lot of us, you get this cyclical or cycle reaction. We might also use the phrase feedback loop, right? Where it's something that just keeps feeding itself. Okay. Where you get this anxiety, looking for problems, creating them, or not necessarily creating them, but just identifying them, we should say, right?
Yeah.
Identifying problems, reacting to problems, re-identifying problems, and you create this loop. And so what cognitive behavioral therapy does is it tries to, from a scientific or medical perspective, help you to try and break those loops, right? So it might be a therapeutic exercise is writing down your problems, identifying what you've done to solve them, closing the notebook or folding the piece of paper and physically putting it away and saying, I'm going to sleep now for the night. I'm not going to think about these things. I'm going to get some rest.
No.
Right? Some people that works, right? There's grounding.
It does work for me. Like, I could feel my head buzzing at the end of November, I guess. Yeah. At the end of November due to the number of stuff that I had to do.
Right.
And my head was buzzing. I couldn't stop thinking about stuff. Yeah. And what I did was I just took a piece of paper and I wrote everything down, like totally everything that was on my mind without even any kind of structure. Yeah. So just spread it. And that's it. So, and it helped. It helped.
Yeah. Yeah. I like one where, I'm gonna recite it wrong now. I always call it 5 things, but it has different names. And so you start with maybe, and it doesn't matter the order or how you do it, but 5 things you can listen to in the room right now. So try and listen, and maybe I'll hear my computer or I'll hear the birds outside. Then 4 things I can see. Then 3 things I can smell, and then you work your way down through all the senses. And that's called a grounding exercise. And it just allows your mind to just stop what it's doing. Because when we're anxious, right, our hormones are producing chemicals, or like you said, our body's buzzing, things are happening. And it's taking that time to calm is very helpful. And then once I reach that calmer state, I can do something like what you did, right? Maybe write down everything that's going on, and then I might look at that and say, okay, only 3 of these things I can actually deal with today. So the other 5, the other 100, right? Exactly. Yeah, because that changes for me day to day. Yeah, right. Like when you're chronically ill, you can't take the energy that you have for granted.
Yeah.
And now that I say that out loud, I think that kind of applies to anybody with any health circumstances, whether you're physically able or not. Now it's kind of like, okay, you guys got to focus on what you can do. So yeah, that's kind of DBT in a nutshell. Just learning exercises to help you understand how your brain works, and how to deal with the symptoms that you have. And that was a great relief for me, especially like, I mean, when you're dealing with anxiety, that, deep down, it's not really your fault, but you still feel like it's your fault, and then when you learn, oh, okay, yeah, it's just a medical thing, right? Kind of like if you're, if you break your arm, it's not your fault that your arm is broken. It's just, it's the way it is. It's something that happened. If you have a cold, it's not your fault. You have a cold. That's what it is. But all of a sudden, when we're dealing with anxiety or stress, it's like, well, it's my fault that I can't deal with it. Well, no, that's silly. No, humans are not designed to deal with stress and anxiety. We don't have natural coping mechanisms for that. We have all kinds of other skills and abilities, but not for dealing with grief, not for dealing with stress, not for dealing with anxiety, not for dealing with worry.
How come? Like, why?
Yeah, that's an important question, right? I think the natural conclusion is we just weren't meant for it. But we live in a world that's very different from that reality at the moment. And, personally, I believe one day it'll be different. But, the immediate future right now is we have to deal with challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's where, taking time to not stereotype or stigmatize yourself because you're dealing with anxiety is very important. And just like you would go to a doctor for a broken limb, it's important to see the right kind of doctor for, dealing with anxiety or something more severe, like severe mental illness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's not funny at all. It's basic English expression. Such a bad English expression. But it's it's silly and sad at the
Interesting.
same. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. It's interesting that even in 2022, we still kind of have that feeling that it's something that we have to hide or shy away from admitting to.
Yeah. Well, I would say that here in Russia, the majority of people are still having those, like, I don't know, Soviet Union standards of life, and they're like, no, we don't have sex. No, we don't have any mental issues. No, they are neglecting everything.
Yeah.
So there is a
Yeah.
group of people like that. So, and sometimes I have to deal with it. It's like it's an issue for me because I don't even want my kids to hear anything of this sort.
Yeah. That's not a completely foreign concept here. In some ways, you might think of the quintessential stereotype of the American, right? You have the cowboy, and he's strong,
Okay.
and he can deal with anything. He's in his homestead, and he's taking care of his cattle, and he's getting invaded left and right. From bears, and he can go out and wrestle that bear by himself, and he doesn't need to talk about his feelings, he doesn't.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the quintessential woman, she can have the career, and she can give birth to a child, and she doesn't have
Absolutely.
natal
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
No, she's not a soup of hormones from growing a child in her womb. No, like, it's stupid, right? But unfortunately, these tropes, to a certain extent, still exist. And now, because we live in a very career-focused world, a lot of people feel like, well, if I can't meet my expectations for career and family, then I have failed as a person. And that's not true. But you can see how old stereotypes still hang on a little bit. And I think that circles back to, again, what we were talking about with adapting to changing circumstances or difficult circumstances, is having a realistic view of what's actually important, right? There are some things that are just more important.
No, I think it's a good thing to be able to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, this ability, like, can help you survive and thrive in 2023 at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like, if you talk with a psychologist, each one will have a different way of expressing things, but all of them will tell you you need to listen to what your body's telling you. That's vital from a medical perspective.
Yeah.
And then, personally, myself, I think it's vital that we recognize that each of us has a spiritual need. And when you recognize that that's true for you, then you start to prioritize things differently, and you can all of a sudden things like career or success has a different meaning than what it did before.
Okay, so the final question for you then. What is one thing that you would say to our audience at the end of this, what is it called? Like a streaming, not a streaming, yeah, so just a podcast.
Yeah, podcast, yeah, yeah. Well, first I'll say, I feel your pain learning English. Language is hard, but it's worth it. Okay, there's that. And then also visit Canada.
Ooh, yeah, I really hope. Ooh, keeping my fingers crossed for everyone. Yeah, guys. So, Dan, thank you so much for being with us. It was real fun. I'm really
glad.
enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.